Josh Pascal is the forgotten player on the Detroit Lions defense. Despite being a former second round pick, despite being a very solid contributor over the last 2 years on the Detroit Lions defense, almost nobody talks about him as being an impactful starter or an impactful player for the Detroit Lions defense in 2024. The former Kentucky Wildcat is a player that Brad Holmes had a lot of faith in to select at the 46th overall pick. And despite having a little bit of an injury concern, Josh Pascal has been great for the Detroit Lions over 2 seasons. But with the additions of guys like Marcus Davenport and DJ Reader to the defensive line, as well as the stardom of Aiden Hutchinson and Lee McNeil, many people forget about Josh Pascal entirely. And today, we're going to take a look at Josh Pascal as a player, Josh Pascal's role on this defense going into 2024, and why people should not push Josh Pascal to the side when taking a look at this Detroit Lions defense. Now, as I said, Josh Pascal is the former 46th overall pick from the 2022 NFL Draft. As a prospect, Josh Pascal stood at 6'3", 278 pounds with a 9.70 RAS score. He was one of the best athletes on the defensive line in the class and was really productive throughout his college career. Now, he played 5 years as a Kentucky Wildcat, 1 year as a linebacker, and then put on a little bit of weight going into year two, redshirted as a sophomore, and then played 3 consecutive years on the defensive line for the Kentucky Wildcats. In his 5-year career, Josh Pascal totaled over 139 tackles, 37 tackles for loss, 13 and a half sacks, an interception, a pass defended, and a forced fumble. He was a versatile piece for Kentucky throughout those 5 seasons, even playing some off-ball coverage as he had that ability from when he played linebacker. Had an interception, had a pass defended, had a lot of sacks, a lot of tackles for loss, was a great run defender, a good interior pass rusher, and somebody that looked the part to be an NFL interior defensive lineman. Now, Pascal's best season came as a senior, as in the 2021 season, Josh Pascal totaled 53 total tackles, 15 and a half tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, as well as his sole career forced fumble. He was a nuisance and a massive threat on the interior of that Wildcats defense, and a player that many people thought could potentially go as high as the first round of the NFL draft. He was a great leader, he was very productive, he was a good athlete, and there was a lot of signs to point to the fact that Josh Pascal would be a great addition to any defensive line in the entirety of the NFL. With that being said, of course, Brad Holmes decided to take him with the 46th overall pick in the 2023 class. But unfortunately, Josh Pascal has dealt with some health issues. He has not been able to play every single game in his NFL career, and in fact has only played 22 games throughout his first 2 seasons, 10 as a rookie and 12 last year. But when he's on the field, he is quite a good player. He's a very versatile piece to this Detroit Lions defense. He plays interior, he plays exterior, he's played the outside edge rushing position alongside Aiden Hutchinson. He's played the 3 tech, he's played, pretty much every single position on the defensive line. They have asked Josh Pascal to play, and Josh Pascal has done so at a very high level. Now, despite Josh Pascal being a good pass rusher on the interior, the Lions use him a lot more to do the dirty work on the defensive side of the ball. They ask him to plug up gaps. They ask him to take on double teams. They ask him to stop the run. They ask him to, work his way through the defense or the offensive line and just do a lot of the dirty work to clear up the one-on-ones, to get to the running back and force him to cut back and force him to set the edge. Right, they asked Josh Pascal to do a lot of the things that won't show up on the stat sheet, but Josh Pascal does those things at an incredibly high level, which is why he will always have a role on the Detroit Lions defense, and he will always have a role within the NFL. Josh Pascal is one of those players that might finish his career with 10 sacks and 15 and a half tackles for loss, but he's going to play in the NFL for 8, 9, 10 seasons because he does a lot of the little things right for the defense. He sets the edge. He forces the running back to go the other way. He plugs his gaps really well. He makes the right reads. He makes the right plays, and he plays a very unselfish brand of football, which leads a lot of fans to not think he's very good because of the statistics he's put up. But if you watch the film and you watch the tape, the Lions defense is much better with Josh Pascal on the field than it is with Josh Pascal off the field. Now, through his 22 career games, Josh Paschal has totaled 41 tackles for the Detroit Lions, 7 tackles for loss, 7 quarterback hits, 3 sacks, and 1 fumble recovery. As I said, a good player for the Detroit Lions defense, but a player that is never likely going to carve out a significant starting role on the Detroit Lions, right? I don't think he quite has the pass rushing juice to be a full-time edge rusher, and I don't think he quite has the size or the strength to be a full-time interior defensive lineman. He's either a really good interior pass rusher or a very good exterior run blocker, but unfortunately, he really isn't the best the other way around. However, that does lead to Josh Paschal being a very versatile piece, can play a lot of different positions for a defensive line, and again, can be an impactful player for any team at any position, depending on the role that they need for any given down and distance. Now, Josh Paschal, and taking a look at the Detroit Lions pass rush, the Detroit Lions defensive line, Josh Paschal probably isn't going to start. I would likely assume that Aiden Hutchinson is going to be the edge rusher one, and Marcus Davenport is probably going to be the edge rusher two, with a healthy rotation of James Houston on obvious pass rushing situations, as James Houston is kind of the anti-Josh Paschal, right? A very, very good exterior pass rusher, but a little bit too small to be a great run defender or to be as versatile. So the exterior pass rush, those edge rushers are going to be Aiden Hutchinson and Marcus Davenport likely on early downs, and probably Aiden Hutchinson and James Houston on third downs and for obvious pass rushing situations, potentially moving Hutchinson or Davenport around. And the interior is likely on early downs going to be Aleem McNeil and DJ Reader, the two best run stoppers and just in general, the two best interior defensive linemen that the Detroit Lions have. However, despite Josh Paschal likely not being a full-time starter for the Detroit Lions, he kind of sits solely in that tier two of players that the Detroit Lions have on the defensive line. I think he is more versatile and more valuable to the defense than, say, a James Houston or a Broderick Martin or a Mekhi Wingo, but I don't think he's quite up there with the starting four. So he's kind of in this weird limbo of a tier two of defensive linemen where, yeah, if there's an injury or some guy needs a break, Josh Paschal could play any of the four positions. He could rotate in for Hutch, Davenport, McNeil, or DJ Reader, but he probably won't start over any of them in any first down or any start to a football game. But he can play and take over the position for all of them, which I think leads them to a very interesting situation with Josh Paschal, where you want to keep him on the field. He is a good and a impactful football player, but where do you put him? Do you rotate him with Marcus Davenport? Do you rotate him with DJ Reader? Do you rotate him with Aleem McNeil? At what points do you have Aleem McNeil and Josh Paschal? At what points do you want Josh Paschal and Aiden Hutchinson getting after the passer, right? It's a very interesting, I guess, dilemma that the Detroit Lions have. And it's because Josh Paschal is kind of in that weird limbo. But I do think that Josh Paschal will have a solid role for the Detroit Lions this year. Do I think he's going to take a massive jump into superstardom and have 8 to 10 sacks next season? Probably not. But I do think as Marcus Davenport potentially deals with injuries again this season, as the latter half of the season goes on, I think Josh Paschal could see an increased role. I think we're taking a look at Josh Paschal potentially being, again, a player that plays about 60% of the defensive snaps this year, just on pure versatility alone. And I do think that Josh Paschal probably, again, will get 2 to 3 sacks on the season, potentially 3 to 5 tackles for loss, but he's going to do a lot of the things that you don't see on the stat sheet. He's going to be a player that consistently plays football, probably, again, plays 65% of snaps for the Detroit Lions, plays on some early downs, plays on some pass rushing downs. He can play all 3 downs of football for the Lions, just all being at different positions. And I do think that despite Josh Paschal likely not putting up the big numbers, he is a player that will continue to be impactful for the Detroit Lions, will continue to see time, and a player that I just don't think many people should forget about or throw to the wayside strictly because of the statistics he's putting up. Now, with all of that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. That is a video on Josh Paschal, just taking a look at him as a player, his role on the Lions, his role going into next season with the upgrades made on the defensive side of the ball. I think Josh Paschal will very much still have a big impact on this defense. And again, even though you might not see it on the stat sheet, you will see it when you turn on film. And I think if Josh Paschal is not on the field, you're going to see a very major difference in the depth that this Detroit Lions team has. So with all of that being said, that is life for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below your opinions on Josh Paschal. If you believe he can take a big step next year, if you think that he's a little bit underwhelming as a player for the 46th overall selection, I'd be very curious what you guys have to say and what you guys think about it. With all of that being said, that is life for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions.